morning. Good morning. Good morning. I hear the conversation, which is great. We have a great program today, so let's go ahead and get started with that. Welcome to the Minority Business and Leadership Breakfast presented by Greystone Power. I hope you're enjoying breakfast. Sounds like you are. My name is Nadia Fawcett. I'm a board member of the Douglas County Chamber, and also I'm the Vice President of Engineering with Greystone Power. We are very, very delighted to be your sponsors for this breakfast. This is our second breakfast of this type. And we certainly got rave reviews from the first, and I don't think this will be any different. So we're very proud to be the sponsors for this morning. Before we get started, I do want to recognize a few guests to see who's here. First, if there are any elected officials, if you could please stand and introduce yourselves. Not sure if we have any here this morning. Okay. Also, if there are any Cornerstone members, please stand and introduce yourselves. We have one, I know. All right, thanks, Odessa. Thanks, Odessa. Any diplomats? Any diplomats this morning? If you could please stand and introduce yourselves as well. Okay. All right, thank you, diplomats and new members. If you are a brand new member to the chamber and you would like to stand and give us 30 seconds of an elevator speech, we would love to hear it. So if you're a new member, feel free to stand and do that. All right, yes, sir. Awesome. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you and welcome. Welcome to the chamber. Anybody else? Oh, we have one in the back. Yes, ma'am. Awesome. Awesome. Well, welcome to the chamber. Welcome to the chamber. Any other? Okay. Okay. We have two more, I think. Two more. Yes, sir. Thank you, Ramon. Awesome. Welcome. And I believe one other new member. Oh, two other new. Okay. Oh, I love it. Okay. All right. We'll let you. Okay.
My name is Anthony James. I represent Stanco for Wellness. It is a vitamin medicine, ancient medicine store where we have a whole bunch of different herbs and CBD for wellness. You got the Stanco for Wellness.
Thank you, Anthony, and welcome.
Good morning. My name is Michael Ware, and I'm representing the Epi Fit Club at the Epi Center. I'm over the personal training group fitness department looking to build some relationships with some corporate membership stuff. So I'll catch up with some of you guys as well. But we have a host of things going on at the Epi Center. A lot of people don't know there's even a fitness club in there. We have a conference center, a 600-seat auditorium, a recording studio, a bowling alley, basketball court, climbing wall, arcade as well. So I'll be happy to answer any questions moving forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. A lot of new members. Let's just give them a round of applause. That's awesome. And last but not least, I do want to recognize if you are a guest, so you're not a member of the chamber yet, I'll say yet, but you are a guest that's here with someone, we'd love for you to stand to and just introduce yourself. If we do have any guests in the house.
Good morning. My name is Jasmine Womack, and I am from the Impact Group. What we do is that we specialize in helping small business owners create a digital aspect of their business to increase their marketing visibility and sales online.
Awesome. Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us. And I'll say not a chamber member yet. So we hope to see you on the roster. But just thank you all for supporting this breakfast. We certainly appreciate your support and appreciate that you're being here. I also want to thank our virtual sponsor, AT&T. They are here and they're sponsoring the virtual event. We have several others that couldn't actually be in the room today, but they are online. So I'm waving to them online as well. So at this time, I would like to invite our breakfast sponsor, Irvin Hawkins, with Delta Community Credit Union, to the stage for sponsor remarks.
All right, how's everybody doing this morning? Excellent, excellent. Thank you for having us. Before I begin, I just wanted to introduce some of my partners that are here with me. I have Mr. Lee Patton, who is our liaison between businesses, and he helps to establish business relationships with the credit union. I also have Mr. William Wesley, and he is more so on the nonprofit and the community side, because as Delta Community Credit Union, we're very, very big on doing community work and partnering with schools and nonprofit organizations. So Mr. Wesley would be that contact person. So just to tell you a little bit about, I'll give you a little history on the Delta Community Credit Union. And in 1940, 8 Delta employees came together with just $45 in capital and created the credit union. It's pretty amazing. And one of their missions was to allow their profits and just coming together to help their peers and their employees to achieve their financial goals. In 2015, we moved away from being an employee credit union to being a community credit union. So now we take that same philosophy and we give it to the community and not just Delta employees. So even though Delta is still one of our largest set groups, we have a huge community charter, and being as though that you guys are in the Douglasville community, you will be eligible to join our credit union as well. And I truly have to say, Douglasville has truly embraced us. So we are really, really grateful for the response that you guys have been giving us. We've been extremely busy. I have a trained and staff with a lot of experience and helping people with their financial needs and just different situations. So please come and visit us. We're a full service credit union. So we do everything from banking solutions to car loans. We just had a pretty amazing car rate. Unfortunately, it ended in May, but we was doing 0.98 for new and refinances. So those are types of specials that we'll run. We also do mortgages. We do personal loans. Goodness, we do boats. We do airplanes. So many different things that we can do. And just these events, like myself and Mr. Ware, we connected at the last breakfast. Great gentleman. I joined his club and he joined the credit union. So I would love to have an opportunity to meet with you guys, just individually. If you have any questions, please come up to myself, Mr. Patton, or Mr. Wesley, and we can answer your questions. But we're definitely happy to be here in the community. Our credit union members have been asking for years for us to come. And so I'm glad that we're here and the community has truly embraced us. So just would like to say thank you guys. And that's what I have.
All right, thank you, Irvin. We appreciate your support in making today's breakfast possible. It's now my pleasure to introduce our dynamic speaker for today. I'm excited. Maybe she'll tell us why we have produce on the screen. I don't know. But Gina Ba. Gina Ba. She is the Vice President of Strategy and Knowledge Development at United Way of Greater Atlanta. Gina is from Decatur and has a long history of working and volunteering with nonprofits here. Her career has focused on programming, planning, evaluation and learning and knowledge development for health and human service organizations. She has a personal commitment and a professional belief that data should be accessible and useful. She has been a driving force behind the development of the Child Wellbeing Index and using data as a catalyst for a broader social movement. Gina has also previously worked as the Senior Evaluation Associate for United Way of Central Maryland in Baltimore. And she leads the Outcomes Measurement Initiative, which included developing programs to better monitor grants and training agencies to improve evaluation processes. She holds a master's degree in public policy from the Johns Hopkins University and a bachelor's degree from the University of Georgia. Go Dogs, right? In addition to working in the United Way system, Gina's worked for U.S. Senator Max Cleland and Annie E. Casey Foundation. She brings extensive knowledge of nonprofits and creative evaluation techniques. She's married to a wonderful husband, Richard Ba, and they have been blessed with 4 amazing children, and it says very talkative children as well. She's a member of St. Peter and Paul Catholic Church, and when she gets a spare moment, she enjoys baking, sewing, and watching crime shows. All right. Well, please help me welcome Mrs. Gina Ba to the stage. Welcome.
Well, good morning. I appreciate that. I forget sometimes, you send a bio and you forget all the stuff that's in it. And I go, oh, all that too? I said all that, like, let's cut this down. Y'all don't need all that background. But one thing you do have to know about me is that I'm a PK. And if you're from the South and stuff, then a few of you know what that means. And so it means I come from a call and response tradition. It means that my father also would say to us, he was not only a preacher, but he was a professor for many years. And he would tell all of his students, you should stop talking when the people stop listening. So it's important for me to know that you're still there. Virtually, there's folks there. We can't have that same thing, but I am excited about being in person. So this is fun for me. And I'm going to ask you guys a couple questions and get you woken up this morning. You got to be a part of this. So are we okay with that? Thank you. Wonderful. Like Nadia said, I'm Gina Ba. I'm from Decatur. I have 4 talkative children. I am blessed that it's summer and that the boys are sleeping and not concerned with what I do at 6:30 and 7:30 in the morning. And that my daughter is sweet and happy and off to tennis camp today. So all of those things help me show up right in the world. And I offer this picture for a couple of things. One is to say, what do you see? Produce, food, variety, colors. Where is this? Could be a farmer's market. Doesn't look like a grocery store. This is a picture of a grocery store in Douglas County. Okay, so that's just your little tidbit to go find it. But I pull up this picture to start us off and tell a story about Thomas. Thomas was a grocery store owner. And I've never owned a grocery store, but I appreciate the local store, right? Or the local farmer's market. We live in Henry County now, and I drive actually about 3 miles extra to get to this little grocery store stand type place. It's a tin roof. They put the electricity in like 2 years ago. They've got the watermelons out front, all that kind of stuff, because I just know that it's super fresh. And I love what I get there. I can talk to the owner about what this is and where this came from and the tomatoes and all kinds of stuff. So I love vegetables. But I want to tell you about Thomas because he had that kind of energy and zeal for providing for the community, for food, for creating a store. right? And some of you own your own businesses, have started things, and that zeal and energy for providing something that you think is going to be useful and beneficial to the community and is a passion of yours, right? So you can relate to Thomas. He had this idea that not only would he have, traditional groceries, fruit and vegetables, things like sweet potatoes, but he'd also have grains, right? Like you'd have your flour, you'd have your grits. And then as his business started growing, as his store really started taking off, it's not easy in the beginning, but it did start to take off. And so then he added some items and he wanted to do a little bit more. He really could envision a bigger presence, right? Like maybe I should start adding some other household items. He was excited about that. He was thriving. It was a hustle though, because Thomas owned the store and worked there in the evenings. He was able to employ 2 other folks. In the daytime, he was a mailman. On the weekends, he was the pastor. So we would say that multiple streams of income today. But back then, it's just the hustle. This is just what he had to do. And he's excited about what it meant for the community. And this store that he had wasn't in town necessarily, wasn't in the big bustling city. It was actually 30 miles outside of Memphis. So kind of like where we are now, about 30 miles outside of the big city. But it really is one of those businesses that it could start to be an anchor and do something really great. But he was not the first grocery store. His competitor down the street started to see a little drop off in business. So as Thomas's business grew, his competitor's business fell down a little bit. And instead of putting up a new set of displays with new sweet potatoes or cutting his prices or even running a sale, Thomas's competitor went to the sheriff, went to the local business club, and they got their shotguns and they came to the back door at night looking for Thomas. They didn't find him. He wasn't there that night. Instead, his 2 employees were there. And so they drug them out of the store and burned the store. So then they went to Thomas's home and they found Thomas there because he was exhausted and tired that night and was home sleeping. And they drug Thomas out of his house and burned his house. And they took the 3 men and they lynched them and left them by the railroad tracks outside of Memphis. And that's a tough story to hear. Right? Because this is not Thomas's store, this is. Right? Thomas didn't start his grocery store 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was more than 130 years ago. And it's a tough story to wrestle with, but I bet you can envision the aspirations that he had, right? We were just talking, we're talking about the growth of a community, we want it to thrive. You want another grocery store? How dare you dream of having another store? How dare you dream of growing your business beyond what the competitors have decided is the market share you should have? So Thomas, and I got to his story, and though it's a painful one, I got to it from some of my own research, some of my inspiration, and one of the women who really inspired me was Ida B. Wells. And she wrote about Thomas, and she was inspired. She was already an activist. She had already desegregated a railroad car and won a court case. But part of what really pushed her to say more, to get more, to be more involved is that she loved Thomas. Right? And so feeling that pain, understanding the loss means something really, really personal to her. And she didn't want to just sit back or just tell her friends or just cry. She went on an investigative mission to pull out the facts, to bring this story to light, to not stop talking about it, even when people were tired of talking about it, even when a different narrative was being written about Thomas and his colleagues. And this story is important to us today as we think about what we see in front of us. That if you were to see the burned lot, the empty or vacant place where people's grocery might have been, do you think, failed store? You know what? That's another business, didn't make it. Lots of businesses get started, lots of businesses go under, lots of businesses don't work out, poorly managed, fires, all kinds of things. But if you know the story behind it, you see that open lot with a different different perspective. When you think about not only what the loss of that business meant to Thomas, but what did it mean to the rest of the community? What did it mean in terms of ripple effect to have concern about starting a new business? What did the next set of Black entrepreneurs, idea makers, visionaries think? Did they have the resources? Did they have the energy? Did they have the support that they needed in order to start that business for it to thrive and grow? Was the insurance going to be there if somebody showed up to burn down your business? Right, so this is not just a story about Thomas or about this one business. This is also about the systems around. This is also about the ripple effect of what trauma is. And so when we talk about looking at the stories and looking at tough histories, we bring that forward with us because we still all have those aspirations and we want something much bigger. Right? Thomas didn't just want a grocery store for the sake of having a grocery store. He wanted to provide a service to the community. He wanted to have something big. And then he also wanted to make it bigger. You know, I don't know if he wanted to have a chain. I don't know if he just dreamt of selling it and getting another business. But those are the things that we want to continue to make possible. And so we've got to look at the past. We've got to see these situations a little bit differently and also recognize there's some trepidation around Black folks who want to own a business, right? It's not just enough to say, oh, here's a piece of land. Oh, opportunity is there for you. We got to support each other in some of the mental health ways and some of the encouragement ways. And so I offer up, if we want to really see the people's grocery of tomorrow thrive, we got to do three things. One, we got to let go of perfection. And I'll tell you about that. Two, we've got to create a better and bigger sense of belonging. Whose store belongs here? Who should own a business? And then the third thing we have to do is fix the systems, not the people. Nothing broken with Thomas, not just about the issues between one person and another person, Thomas and his competitor, but there's some systems things that we got to fix. So what do I mean when I say we got to let go of perfection? So this is a video clip, and we'll send it to you guys because, you know, technology works always fine on my home. I've been virtual for a year and a half. This notion of being in person, I was like, oh, didn't work out. So no matter who you are, where you are on your racial equity journey, there is no perfection. Any of you married? Anybody in here married? I got a husband, you heard that in the bio, 21 years. I have not always spoken perfectly to him. He has not always understood me perfectly. It's happened once or twice, even this morning when I'm like, no, I need your keys. And he stood there like, my keys. But this notion that there should be perfection when it comes to talking about race, I don't know what to say. Somebody might misinterpret what I'm saying. My husband misinterpreted what I was saying to him. It happens every day on little bitty issues, so it's also going to happen on big issues. Let's let go of that so that we can enter into conversations, whether it's how you feel, what you're worried about, what somebody needs to change. We need to embrace this notion that there is no perfection. And that there is no perfection around this thing, around race, which is created. Right? It's social, it's sticky, it's this, that, and the other. There is no perfection. And if we can let go of needing to be perfect when we show up and how we speak, then we can lean into a conversation, we can forgive one another, we can start over, we can stumble. Right? So that's the first thing that's gonna allow us to keep the conversation going. The next thing about this is it's wanting to offer up this notion that United Way has adapted from the Racial Equity Institute. And as we talk about both belonging and perfection and where we need to act, we started thinking about community as a tree, or maybe a set of trees. I love Atlanta. The region has a lot of green space. We have one of the best tree canopies. And so the thing that we talk about a lot of times is that you can see the problems and see stuff in the leaves, right? That's the graduation caps coming off. That's the man who's homeless on the sidewalk. That's the leaves. That's the end result of what we've been doing. Then you also have the storms. whether that's a tornado that comes through town or whether that's COVID, and it really shakes things up, right? You've had a storm that has knocked down a tree before. And so you know the deep impact and what you got to do. Like everybody's got to rally around, you got to chop it down, you got to move stuff, you got to tend to it to be able to deal with that crisis. And then you've got the roots, that if what's being produced on that tree is somehow infected, is somehow has a gap, is somehow not what you want it to be, you might need to look at the roots. How strong is your root system? Do they have enough water? Can they get what they need? And even beneath that, if you were seeing problems not only in your peach tree, but in your dogwood tree and your magnolia tree, you might start to say, this is not a problem in one place, but the problem is in the groundwater. That underneath that, the ideologies that we have are shaping the outcomes that we see down the road. That when we talk about racial equity, we've got to look at the roots and the groundwater. Those are things that maybe we have not talked about day to day. We talk about the surface stuff, how many businesses do we have, but is there some ideology that we need to fix? We talk about how many kids are graduating and the gap between Black kids graduating and white kids graduating, but are there some ideologies we need to address? We talk about business growth, but are we upset at seeing a sign that's in Spanish about a new grocery store? And so we need to adapt and change some of the things that are in the groundwater so that we get a greater sense of belonging. So we use this to say, dealing with racial equity is not easy, but is the thing in the groundwater, which takes a long time. And if we fix what's in the groundwater, we will end up with a different set of outcomes. So I got a lot of stuff, and that's some data. I told you guys I love data. You can have lots of data. The thing that I want you to see in these charts, there's a gap, there's a gap, there's a gap. Part of why when we talk about equity, we talk about racial equity is because the gaps that we see are biggest by race. There are gender gaps, yes, but there are racial gaps that are even bigger. And this one just happens to be related to wealth and income because I'm at the chamber. I could say the same thing around education. I could show you the same charts around health. I could tell you the same charts around social justice system. So. And if we wanted to change it, it's not just a good thing to do. It's not just morally right to treat everybody as if they belong, but it will have an economic impact. I was trying to explain this to my kids, you know, strange thing, you want to talk to your 8-year-old about what you're going to talk about. And the idea that I couldn't even explain really well is what is trillions, right? So it's going to produce an impact that is at the scale of trillions for the US economy if we can close these racial gaps, right? So it's really meaningful work to do. It's not just nice to do, it's really meaningful, financially beneficial for Douglas County to work on closing the racial equity gaps. Where do we start? There's lots of stuff that we've done. We started with education awareness. We've started with some grant making. We'd love for you guys to be part of that. When I say lean in and you figure out the stories, it's not just the story of Thomas, there's lots of stories, there's lots of background. And this is part of what we have to do as leaders. We've got to show up differently. We've got to be really informed and broaden our lens, and you're not alone. There's a lot of folks, I want to flip to this one, because sometimes we start on a journey. Sometimes you think you're alone, but you're not. Folks like Thomas, even with the tragedy that was there, he was not alone. Even with the tragedy that his family experienced, there were other people like Ida B. Wells who stepped forward. There were other people in that community who continued to step forward, who continued to build businesses, who continued to both hold their ground and also push forward. So there's a lot of space. You're not alone when you're thinking about this. Sometimes in our political environment right now, there's a lot of folks on the edge. There's a lot of noise, there's a lot of pushback, but there are also a lot of supporters. So we wanted you to know that. So this is what I mentioned before. Let go of perfection. We are all going to mess up, whether that's in our conversations, whether that is in, today I don't feel like talking about it, but tomorrow I do, whether it's saying the wrong thing, whether it is leaning into something and messing up and say, oh, my bad, I did it. I shouldn't have said that, but let go of that perfection so that you can be in the conversation. Let go of that perfection so we can push forward. Create communities of belonging. Whose business belongs here? How many grocery stores can we tolerate? How much thriving? What is the cap? Are we okay with saying, welcome, good morning, you belong, I expect to see you? Teenagers say simple stuff like, smile at me. When you see a kid with wavy brown hair and brown skin who you think does not speak your language, just nod at them. Because the ones who look just like you don't speak your language either. Right? I don't know half of what my teenage boy says. I go, what are you saying? So just create that sense of belonging to one another, with one another. And then fix the systems, not the people. There are some rules, there's some policies underneath. Can we create new systems? Because just like having that sweet potato show up on the shelf, it's not just the sweet potato that's there. There is a delivery truck, there is a logistics system, there is cooling, there are rules about the farmer and how much they can price it. So there are some systems in place that if we adjusted them and fixed them and opened them up, we could get to greater racial equity. United Way is really excited about being part of the conversation, and we invite you to see the community through a new lens, not just from the perspective of what we have right now, but what is the future? And whose lens, and do these two girls see the same future? Growing up right here in Lithia Springs and in Douglasville, can they see the same future? What's the aspirations for them in terms of their business growth? And can we create a place where there's no boundaries on that? That nobody stops and says, hey, you over here, you can only have 2% of the market share. But your market share potential is endless. And so this is who I thought would be here. This is who I see you guys as. The trailblazers, the innovators. You are the people who studied science and the people who create. You are the people who build things. And we're really counting on you to be part of what it means to create a community that has racial equity. This is one of my favorite quotes, and so I wanted to leave you with it. And thank you.